Today this is my first YouTube stream and I'm going to live. So I today try to connect with you, and please uh, type your name in this comment box or chat box so that I can know who are you, and I wish you a very good health so that you can connect me in future also. So let's start this streaming. I will try to read a novel that's name is 20,000 Leagues. Okay, so it is not showing because I have shared my background, so just clear the background. Okay, first my live video. Sorry to lose the connection in between. My live video. Sorry to lose the connection in between. Now I am going to share with you that I am going to start a new novel today. The novel name is 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. That is written by the Jules Verne. So this is the novel. I had purchased this book 1 year before, but never had the time to read this. But I have decided today that let's start it from today. So welcome to my YouTube stream first of all, and thank you for joining me. Let's connect with me a few minutes. So as we start this novel, first we read the author's biography so that we can connect with the author and the literature he had written. So the author name is Jules Verne, who have wrote this novel. The novel name is 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Jules Verne. So Jules Verne was born at Nantes in France in 1828 of legal and sea farming stock. Was the author of innumerable adventures stories which combined a vivid imagination with a gift for popularizing science. Okay, so from the first para, I came to know that the author was curious about science, so he had written a lot of the novels on the science and adventures of science. So uh, we will read the more about the author to know him more. So although he had studied the law at the Paris, okay, he was lawyer also, he devoted his life entirely to writing. Oh, nice. That's why he became the author. His most popular stories, so we will continue with his popular stories. So beside 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, the novel was saying that beside the 20,000 Leagues, he had written many stories about the science. So before I will continue with those stories, I would like to tell you that this novel, The 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, was written by the Jules Verne in 1870. That is more earlier than our ancestor, our grandfathers were born. So he had written this, and he had written more novels, including 5 Weeks in a Balloon, that was written by him in 1863, and Journey to the Center of the Earth. Okay, I had chapter also in my English book in, I think that was in 7th or 8th class. uh, Basically that was also from his book. So I came to know that was from his books, Jules Verne's books, novels. Great. So next novel he wrote on a trip. The novel name was A Trip to the Moon. That was written 1865, and Round the World in 80 Days was also written by him in 1872. Nice. And another novel was written by him was Mitchell Strogoff in 1876. I, this is approximately 160 years earlier, 160 100 years earlier. In addition, he was the author of a number of successful plays as well of a popular history of exploration from Phoenician time to the mid 19th century. The Discovery of the Earth 1878 to 1888 he had written. After a long and active career in literature, Jules Verne died at Amiens, France in 1905. When was he born? He was born in 1828. And when was he died? He died in 1905. Okay, so let's start with the index of this book. So in this book there are two there are two parts. In one part 1, there are around 23 chapters. Okay, and in part 2 there are also 23 chapters. Nice. He had divided the book in equal chapters. So first chapter in first part is a shifting reef. So let's begin with this. Before we will start the first chapter, just know about the timeline 18 and end of the 1800s. So there is an introduction available here. Here is introduction is saying that the 19th century was marked by the exploration, invention, and an extensive use of the science and technology in the industries. It laid emphasis on geography and astronomy. Though Verne was not a scientist, he was a devoted student of science. He spent his time making detailed notes on anything concerned science, discovering discoveries, inventions, adventures, and and travels. The marvel of science gave a new sheen to the literature genre of the adventurous and extraordinary, which had for hundreds of years worn the mantle of religious miracle, legends, fairies, and fantasies. In a series of marvelous novels, Verne captured the imagination of the world. Hi man, can you write your name in the chat box so that I can connect with you? Okay, so let's go with the other line. In a series of marvelous novels, Verne captured the imagination of the world with his exploratory voyage into space, into the earth, into the polar regions, and under the sea. For the first time, Verne had a cast science in a romantic role, even as he maintained his fiction in a possible or to the most plausible level. Many consider 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, the book name 20,000 Sea Under 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea as Verne's masterpiece. Actually, it was not Verne who invented the submarine. Monsieur Petit, a French inventor who had created a submarine-like object, had lost his life in the waters around France. Robert Fulton's submarines, named Nautilus, had been offered to Napoleon, who had refused it. These crafts were rather crude and unreliable. Verne saw their use in the future, envisioning and then building a mastercraft, albeit, albeit in his imagination, with which he explored unattainable regions of the sea. Verne had three great passions. One is nephew said, freedom, music, and the sea. All these he had used explicitly in this wonderful story of the sea. Verne not only created his most well-known character in this story, but also gave his detailed attention in describing the wonders of nature beneath the sea. He had done this in the same style as great artists who devote their care and attention to the physiological details of human character. The reader is introduced to the marvelous wonders found in the ocean. They are scenes never seen by human eye. Verne excelled in the art of imagination. He presented a wonderful world of the beautiful form and colors, colorful plants, coral forests, flowers, fantastic creatures of all kinds, monsters, volcanoes, the polar regions, cemeteries, the ruin of Atlantis, coal mines, treasures, all of which he described with a dramatic vivid realism. The number of exploration and scientists Verne's work inspired in innumerable. Born on February 8, 28 in Nantes, a seaport of Brittany, Jules Verne lived about 30 miles from the mouth of the river Loire. As he grew up, his imagination and curiosity were aroused as he watched the fishing craft and other ocean vessels. This was led on by the semantic and fantastic adventurous stories of James Fenimore, Fenimore Cooper, Walter Scott, Edgar Allan Poe, Chateaubriand, Chateaubriand, भयंकर क्या है ये Chateaubriand, Fenimore Cooper, etc. Even as a young boy, his love for the sea and adventure led him to become a cabin boy by trickery. Unfortunately, he was found out and sent back to his parents even before the vessel reached the open sea. Now that he was not able to run away to seek excitement and adventures, he started traveling in the company of fantastic animals and machineries. Why people are not joining me? Why? What is stopping you to learn the English more and improve yourself? What is stopping you? Tell me. Buddy, join me so that it will encourage me and also encourage you. It will help me in reading but help you in listening and understanding what we are reading and you are listening. So please connect with me. Just join my channel. I am starting this series from today and I am going live every day at 10 p.m. Okay, let's go with the other topic. He displayed an intense interest in the technology and inventions of the 19th century. While in school, he was not a very brilliant student, but he did imagine he did manage to complete his studies at the lycée of his native city. At the age of 20, Verne's father, who was a lawyer of the old school, sent him to study law. Verne did go, but rather reluctantly. He completed the course in law, but his interest in legal matters was purely incidental. When he was in Paris, he had shown a deep interest in theatre. Around 1848, he had in production a one-act play in verse, Les Palais Rompus, Broken Straws, which means broken straw, which ran for 12 nights. When his father requested that he return to Nantes to practice law, he refused. Une fatale me clou et Paris, which means Fats nails me in Paris, he answered. And furthermore, I would ruin your practice, he added. All his literary efforts brought him no money. Thus, when his father cut off his allowances, Verne found it rather difficult to mix and meet. In the meantime, his brother Paul had already joined him in Paris. One of their uncles then introduced them to some of the literary salons, where fashionable ladies loved to meet the celebrities of the day. Here, Verne came in contact with Victor Hugo, Alexander Dumas Pere, and the younger Dumas who helped and encouraged him. When he wrote a few travel stories for the family General Musitius families, he realized the true direction of his interest and talent. Now he constantly hunted the Bibliothèque Nationale, where they read extensively. His choice of books were generally the ones which dealt with science and other mechanical inventions. Verne went to Amiens to attend a friend's wedding. There he saw the bride's sister, who was a widow with two daughters. He fell in love with her but had no way to support her if he would marry her. So he appealed to his father to approve his marriage and to buy him a membership in a brokerage home house to help him support his family. To his surprise, his father agreed to the request. His father believed that this would keep his son's nose to the grindstone. It did, in a way, as Verne regularly got up at 5 o'clock in the morning, wrote until 10, and then left for work. Felix Tournachon, Tournachon known as Nadar in Paris, was a successful photographer. He was a would-be he was a would-be astronaut and was trying to raise money to build a giant balloon. Under Nadar's influence, Verne gathered material for a fictional and documentary story of a balloon trip across the African continent, which was a topical subject at that time. When no publisher accepted his story, Verne threw the manuscript into the fire in anger, but his wife rescued it and suggested he submit it to the Hazel, the publisher of a boys' magazine, Journal de Education at the Recreation. Hazel revised it a little. The revised story tilted Sing Siemens and Ballon, which means 5 weeks in a balloon. was printed in 1863. It was welcomed in literary circles and was soon translated into many languages. Hazel immediately put Verne under a lifelong contract at 20,000 francs a year, and so Verne's literary career was launched. Verne became rich enough to buy an 8-ton fishing craft. He named it Saint Michael in honor of his son. Michael, he he used the vessel as a pleasure boat as well as a studio where the he could write better than on land. Verne's next work was Tilted Journey to the Center of the Earth, printed in 1864. It created a stir much greater than the one created by his former work, Five Weeks in a Balloon. In 1865, Verne's next work, From the Earth to the Moon, was published. It had a bold and moving narrative which had been conceived rather brilliantly. Shortly before he died, Verne told his grandson, Jean-Jules Verne, now a retired judge at Toulon, to preserve my book with great care, because I know that you will be able to measure the accuracy of image I have created. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea appeared in 1870, but book publishing had been stopped due to the Franco-Persian War. When the war was over, this work spread like wildlife throughout the world. Around the World in 80 Days was published in 1873. It was serialized in newspaper and caught the attention of the world much as if the voyage was taking place in reality. When it was staged in theaters, it reportedly had 300 shows that earned a fortune. After the Franco-Persian War, Verne moved to Amiens. There he became a city councillor and a member of the Academy of Science. He sold his fishing craft, St. Michael's. Then he bought a small sailing yacht, St. Michel II, in 1874. He bought St. Michel III. It was a larger yacht and was a steam vessel. On it, Verne sailed extensively and rather luxuriously in European waters. In 1886, a young man related to his family shot him in his leg, which left him crippled for life. He was unable to stand on his feet when on deck, so Verne sold his vessel. He spent the rest of his life performing political duties. He still kept, kept in touch with all the advances of science and other mechanical inventions. He wrote several books, stories, and poems. In 1905, on March 5, Verne breathed his last. Memorial were erected in Verne's memory. The most well known of his memorials was set up in Amiens in 1907. In it, Jules Verne is shown rising from grave. He is wrapped in a shroud. His right hand is reaching upward, and his epitaph reads, Onward to immortality and eternal youth. Hi. So now, after completing the Verne's journey of the life and journey of his literature, we are going to read his literature carefully. The part 1, in which we are going to read the chapter 1, A Shifting Reef. Let's begin this lesson. Chapter. The year 1866 was signalized by a remarkable incident, a mysterious and puzzling phenomenon which doubtless no one has yet forgotten, not to mention rumors which agitated the maritime population and excited the public mind even in the interior of continents. Seafaring men were particularly excited. Merchants, common sailors, captain of vessels, skippers, both of Europe and America, naval officers of all countries, and the government of several states on the two countries were deeply interested in matter. For some time, past vessels had been met by an enormous thing, a long object, spindle shaped, occasionally phosphorescent, and infinitely larger and more rapid in its movements than a whale. The facts relating to this apparition apparition entered in various longbooks agreed in most respect as to shape of the object or creature in question, the untrained rapidity of its movements, its surprising power of locomotion, and the pe- peculiar life with which it seemed endowed. If it was a whale, it surprised in size all those hitherto classified in science, taking into consideration the mean of observation made at diverse time, rejecting the timed estimate of those who assigned to this object a length of 200 feet, equally with exaggerated opinions which set it down as a mile in width and 3 in length. We might fairly conclude that this mysterious being surpassed greatly all dimensions admitted by the learned ones of the day. If it, sorry, it if it existed at all. Download the easiest screen capture print screen program free trial, and that it did exist was an undeniable fact, and with the tendency which disposes the human mind in favor of the marvelous, we can understand the excitement produced in the entire world by this supernatural apparition. As to classing it in the list of fables, the idea was out of the question. On the 20th of July 1866, the steamer governor Higginson, the steamer governor Higginson of the Calcutta and Burnach Steam Navigation Company had met this moving mass 5 miles off the east coast of Australia. Captain Baker thought at first that he was in the presence of an unknown sandbank. He even prepared to determine its exact position when two columns of water, projected by the mysterious object, shot with a hissing noise 150 feet up into the air. Now, unless the sandbank had been submitted to the intermittent eruption of a geyser, the Governor Higginson had to do neither more nor less than with an aquatic mammal, unknown till then, which threw up from its blowholes columns of water mixed with air and vapor. Similar facts were observed on the 23rd of July in the same year in the Pacific Ocean by the columns columns of the West India and Pacific Steam Navigation Company. But this extraordinary creature could transport itself from one place to the other with surprising velocity, as in an interval of 3 days. The Governor Higginson and the Coulomps had observed it at two different points of the chart, separated by a distance of more than 700 nautical leagues. 15 days later, 2000 miles further off, the Helvetia of the Campan Company National and the Shannon of the Royal Mail Steamship Company sailing to windward in that portion of the Atlantic lying between the United States and Europe, respectively, signaled the monster to each other in 42 at 15-minute north latitude and 60 at 35-minute west. Long in this simultaneous observation, they thought themselves justified in estimating the minimum length of the mammal at more than 50 feet, as the Shannon and Helvetia were of, of smaller dimensions than it, though they measured 350 overall. Now, the largest whales, those which frequent those parts of the sea round the Aleutian, Kula, Mek, and Anchorage Islands, have never exceeded the length of 60 yards if they attain that. In every place of great resort the monster was fashioned. They sang of it in the cafes, ridiculed it in the papers, and represented it on the stage. All kind of stories were circulated regarding it. There appeared in the papers caricatures of every gigantic and imaginary creatures, from the white whale, the terrible Moby Dick of subarctic regions, to the immense kraken whose tentacles could entangle a ship of 500 tons and hurry it into the abyss of the ocean. The legends of ancient time were even revived. Then burst forth the unattending argument between the believers and the unbelievers in the societies of the wise and the scientific journals. The question of the monster inflamed all minds. Editor of scientific journals quarreling with believers in the supernatural spilled seas of ink during this memorable campaign, some even drawing blood. For from the sea separate serpent they came to direct personalities. During the first month of the year 1867, the question seemed buried, never to revive when new facts were brought before the public. It was then no longer a scientific problem to be solved, but a real danger seriously to be avoided. The question took quite another shape. The monster became a small island, a rock, a reef, but a reef of indefinite and shifting proportions. On the 5th of March 1867, the Moravian of the Montreal Ocean Company, finding herself during the night in the 27 at 30-minute latitude and 72 at 15-minute longitude, struck on her starboard quarter a rock, marked in no chart for that part of the sea. Under the combined effort of the wind and its 400 horsepower, it was going at rate of 13 knots. Had it not been for the superior strength of the hull of the Moravian, she would have been broken by the shock and gone down with the 2737 passengers she was bringing home from Canada. The accident happened about 5 o'clock in the morning as the day was breaking. The officers of the quarter deck to hurried to the after part of the vessel. They examined the sea with the most careful attention. They saw nothing but a strong eddy about 3 cables' length distant, as if the surface had been violently agitated. The bearings of the place were taken exactly, and the Moravian submerged rock or on the enormous wreck. They could not tell, but on examination of the ship's bottom when undergoing repairs, it was found that part of her keel was broken. This fact so grave in itself, might perhaps have been forgotten like many others, if 3 weeks after it had not been reenacted under similar circumstances. But thanks to the nationality of the victim, of the shock, thanks to the reputation of the company to which the vessel belonged. The circumstances become extensively circulated. The 13th of April 1867, the sea being beautiful, the breeze favorable, the Scotia of the Cunard Company's line found herself in 15 at 12-minute longitude and 45 at 37-minute latitude. She was going at the speed of 13 knots and a half at 17 minutes past 4 in the afternoon, whilst the passengers were assembled at lunch in the great saloon. A slight shock was felt on the hull of the Scotia on her quarter, a little aft of the port paddle. The Scotia had not struck, but she had been struck, and seemingly by something rather sharp and penetrating than blunt. The shock had been so slight that no one had been alarmed, had it not been for the shouts of the carpenter's watch, who rushed on to the bridge, exclaiming, "We are sinking, we are sinking." At the first, the passengers were much frightened, but Captain Anderson, Anderson hastened to reassure them. The danger could not be imminent. The Scotia, divided into 7 compartments by strong partitions, could brave with impunity any leak. Captain Anderson went down immediately into the hold. He found that the sea was pouring into the fifth compartment, and the rapidity of the influx proved that the force of the water was considerable. Fortunately, this compartment did not hold the boilers, or the fires would have been immediately extinguished. Captain Anderson ordered the engines to be stopped at once, and one of the men went down to ascertain the extent of the injury. Some minutes afterwards, they discovered the existence of a large hole, 2 yards in diameter, in the ship's bottom. Such a leak could not be stopped, and the Scotia, her paddles half submerged, was obliged to continue her course. She was then 300 miles from Cape Clear, and after 3 days' delay, which caused great uneasiness, uneasiness in Liverpool, she entered the basin of the company. The engineers visited the Scotia, which was put in dry dock. They could scarcely believe it possible that 2 yards and a half below water mark was a regular rent in the form of an isosceles triangle. The broken place in the iron pellets was so perfectly defined that it could not have been more neatly done by a punch. It was clear then that the instrument producing the perforation was not a common stamp, and after having been driven with prodigious strength and pricing, an iron plate is 1 3 by 8 inches thick had withdrawn itself by a backward motion. Such was the last fact which resulted in exciting once more the torrent of public opinion. From this moment, all unlucky casualties which could not be otherwise accommodated for were put down to the monster. Upon this imaginary creature rested the responsibility of all the shipwrecks, which unfortunately were considerable, for of 3,000 ships, whose loss was annually recorded at Lloyd's. Lloyd's, the number of sailing and steamships supposed to be totally lost from the absence of all news amounted to not less than 200. Now, it was the monster who justly or unjustly was accused of their disappearance, and thanks to it, communication between the different continents became more and more dangerous. The public demanded sharply that the seas should at any price be relieved from this formidable citizen, member of the whale family. So, how this lesson is completed, and other chapter we will start tomorrow. Thank you for joining me. Bye bye.